There's nothing like seeing a family change. There's nothing like seeing a teenager overcome their fears. There's nothing like seeing a parent who was struggling get back on her feet and get her kids back and move out and buy her own house and support her kids, and then to write your letter back and say, hey, thank you for all you've done. That's rewarding. Even if you only touch or reach one family out of 10, you've made a difference in somebody's life and all of their offspring, etc., etc. So you have to have it within yourself that you're looking at the outcomes from the families, not what you see on a day-to-day basis. Because, you know, these families only represent a small portion of society, and somebody's got to help them out. Somebody's got to do it. You know, might as well be me.
You're probably, when you're probably thinking now you're going to make these big changes. It's not every day, it's not even every week, but it's those small things that keep you going, and it's what makes it worth it.
If you come into this position thinking that you're going to change the world over, it's going to be a big letdown. But if you take tiny steps and honestly want to make a change, an impact in these children's lives, you will.
This is a hard job. There's nothing glamorous about it, and there's nothing pretty, you know, and when a child cusses you out, and, you know, when I'm not getting in the car with you, you blank, 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 and, you know, I mean, you just have to have a thick skin and just, you know, go for it. Those are the kind of children that you're just, you know, that freak you out, and you take it home with you. I mean, I would lay in the bed at night and go, where am I going to put this child?
If you change one child's life, it's going to be wonderful. And it might take years for you to see that. But when it does come, oh gosh, it's a good feeling. It's a wonderful feeling.
My mother stayed home with us. We were taught to read. I had nothing tragic happen. I had a great childhood. I didn't know stuff like this existed. The people that I work with the most are drug abusers, alcoholics, people with mental health issues, people who this abuse has been generational and that is all they know. That's the life they've lived. And you really have to, you know, draw back and look and say, okay, we've really got to look at what these people need. I've kind of gotten, I guess maybe that made me grow up, maybe I was a little naive when I first started.
I don't think you can be judgmental and do this job. And you have to try to be as objective as you can. You have to realize that, you know, it's just by the grace of God that you're not in that position.
You also have to be able to make decisions and to work with clients in the midst of chaos. Kind of like having someone yelling at you in a room at one point and being able to think clearly about what you need to be able to do and also react appropriately with them so that you can work effectively with them, no matter what their attitude is or what the situation is at the time.
I actually thought I was going to be going in taking children all the time. I thought every case I got, I was going to be taking children. And once I started the job, I realized that actually you don't do that as often. In fact, that's the last resort.
Safety of the child is always primary. We don't have a second chance at all. If we make a mistake in judgment, then the consequences are dire. What you do is you look at the evidence. The evidence drives everything. You look at the response of the mother, you look at the response of the father, you talk with family, friends, you try and develop a picture of this individual, how this individual responds to different circumstances. And then you sit down, you talk with your supervisor, you talk with the police, you talk with doctors, and you make hard decisions.
I guess when I thought about working in social services, I didn't realize how much of an impact our agency has on families. I completely overlooked the legal side of it. I mean, we remove children and place them in foster care. Not what our goal is, but it's hard going in and sitting in the courtroom the first time, and those cases come in and out every, 5 minutes, and you're terminating parental rights. This lady is never going to be able to see or talk to her child again, or you're reuniting a family together. I just never realized the legal side of our agency.
My main expectation was to work with the children more, and with DFCS you work mostly with the parents, because you got to develop the case plan, you got to work, because the parents are the ones that have to change their parenting skills. They have the problem at that point in time, and you got to sometimes teach them.
to pay the bills.
And sometimes you can't.
You're not always able to fix a situation. A lot of times you can provide help, you can put a Band-Aid on something, you can refer them to resources that they need, but it's not always you that's doing the service that the family needs to repair whatever needs to be repaired within the family. So you don't always have that feeling that you've made the change for them, but a lot of times you know that you've helped them find someone that they needed to help them, or you've helped supply them with something they didn't know about before.
I think I thought when I first started that I would have the answers, and I realized over time that the families, they're the best people. They know their lives. They're the best people. They can solve their problems.
You begin to learn families in generations, and oftentimes we see one generation after another.
These families didn't get this way overnight, and we're not going to be able to snap our fingers or wave our magic wand and have all the problems gone. It's a process that they got where they are, and it's going to be a process to reverse that. And it's about helping families see where the problems are themselves, and then wanting to see how those problems can be better, and then providing them with the resources if they're available. And if they're not available, helping them yourself and having a relationship yourself with the people to try to work on those problems and resolve them.
I walked in the office. I had to complete paperwork on a case that I was involved in. It's a shaken baby case. It was a case where a father was home alone with his child, and he called the EMTs saying that his child was no longer breathing. The child was taken to the hospital, and the child was diagnosed as being a shaken baby. The child had the classic signs, the retinal bleeding, lethargic, non-responsive, and as part of our involvement, the father cannot be in the home. And we put together a case plan indicating that. We also indicate that the family needs counseling. We've also indicated that the family needs parenting classes. Right now, the family is not agreeing to that. And we're hoping it would not reach the point where we have to take it to court and remove the child from the home. So it's a very difficult undertaking, and we do not do that lightly.
Think about how you would feel if we had to come to your door. Even if you don't have children. It could be your niece, your cousin, your friend's child. How would you feel? How would you want us to approach you? Would you want us to come in, I'm with DFCS, and you're going to do what I say? We're going to take these children because you don't know what you're doing. You're a horrible parent. Or would you want us to sit down and talk? Because that's what it is, a conversation. We have a policy that guides us, but it's a conversation.
I'm non-threatening. I attempt to be non-threatening. I said, my interview technique is like Columbo. I walk in there and I'm like, oh, could you help me? I don't know what's going on. Could you please help me? And generally people will respond to that. They respond to, I'm not in your face type of investigator, because you really don't get a lot done. So what you do is you walk in there and you watch their responses. And generally people are going to respond. They want to talk with you. They want to help you. And so you just allow them to do that. And generally they respond to that. What you don't walk in homes is with attitude that I know everything and you don't know anything, and particularly dealing with poor people or working class, that you're a piece of junk, and I know what the situation. In reverse, when you deal with upper middle class people, you should not walk in and be intimidated by them. You should not be intimidated by the wealth, by their possessions, by their intellect. You just say, look, I'm here to help. That's all. And by and large, everybody responds.
One of the most difficult things with working with families is separating yourself from your personal feelings about that parent. I had a situation where I had 3 kids, a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old, who were sexually abused by some member of the house. And we get to the hospital and the mother says that she had no idea it happened. And the reporters had found blood in the children's diapers on a couple of occasions. And the mother claims that she didn't see it. But at the same time, a man who lived in the house had actually sexually abused her as a child. And so my thought was, well, if this happened to you as a child, why didn't you think to protect your own kids? And she was like, well, I didn't think it was going to happen again. And well, this same mom also tested positive for cocaine and for marijuana at the same time. And so we figured that, well, maybe she's off doing drugs and partying, and these poor little kids have been abused and neglected because of you just not caring. I have to work with this person and treat her like I would anybody else to help her get her kids back. And so regardless as to how negative you might feel about the situation, it's my job to help this lady get back on her feet, because you know what, maybe she's just young and immature, maybe she just made a mistake. And so you have to give people that opportunity to change and realize what mistake they've made.
But I had a single mom. She was addicted to cocaine, and she had 2 children, and they were probably about 8 and 10, so close in range. So they knew what was going on in the home, but they were very protective of mom. Because I was her biggest cheerleader, had all faith in the world that she loved her kids enough and she would want to change. And she will allow me to help her so we can get to the end of the road. She didn't, so at that point in time, I had to go back to the house and say, I need for you to go to a drug screen. And then again, she told me, I'm not doing any drugs, my kids are fine, I don't abuse them, I don't neglect them. But I had a positive screen right then and there, so I had to take action. And I said, I need somebody else that these children can stay with until we further assess the situation. Had to place the children outside the home, and it was a relative that she gave me and that she approved. Then she had to go for a substance abuse assessment. That took some doing too. First time, she missed an appointment, then she just had an excuse, the car broke down. And I said, okay, I'm not just going to automatically say she's lying. I'm going to go ahead and work with her because I'm her biggest cheerleader. She can do this. Set up for another appointment. She did go for the second appointment. Come to find out, the car did break down, so it was true. She did change her circle of friends. She did get a better job. She got a better car, and she was ready for her kids to come home. Brought the kids home, still kind of monitored the interaction between mom and children to make sure things were okay. That she didn't have all the stressors in her life that she had before. Because most of the time people turn to drugs for certain reasons. And most of the time it's a high hurt and pain because they were abused at some point in time. Or they have a lot of stress. They're a single parent, working with 2 to 3, 5 kids, and is their sole provider. So they turn to drugs. And she came and she said, you might not remember me, you might not know my name, but I thank you. The day that you knocked on my door, you changed my life. And I said, no, actually you changed your life. She said, yes, but you were there to help me. And I just want you to thank you because I know you don't get that many thanks in the job that you do. She said, but I have stayed clean. She said, my kids are doing well, showed me pictures of her kids. And I was like, I thank you.
I don't know about you guys, I've never had a typical day with defects. You come in and you say, this is what I'm going to do today, and then it doesn't happen. So you get in what you can fit in between 8 to 5 or 7 or 8 or 9. Might be documentation, might be returning phone calls, it might be transporting a child to a visit. A typical day could be anything. But the best way to describe a typical day is to expect the unexpected.
There's no typical day. You come in with a list of things that you need to do. However, the minute you walk into the room, you have a crying child, who's been brought back by a foster parent, or you've learned that a child's had an emergency and you cannot deal with court that particular day. You've got to run out and see to the child. So, learning to work with all of the number of things that come at you. I think has been the biggest challenge for me.
Most mornings on my drive into work, I'm thinking about what all I'm going to try to accomplish that day. Some days I'm fortunate enough to accomplish that, and then other days I'm not. You never know what's going to happen. When you have to drop everything and go deal with a crisis where a child is being picked up and having to go into foster care.
A regular day would be phone calls, urgent needs that a client may have, address those needs if at all possible. Going out, making home visits, making sure, of course, that the children are safe. I'm in Atlanta, and I do a lot of driving.
I've had 3 windows that had to be replaced because kids playing with the automatic windows. I've had children throw up in my car. Roaches in my trunk from suitcases and bags that had been put in my trunk from a child's house.
I know every county just about in Georgia, and I think I've touched it with my 4 tires at some point in time over the last 2.5 years.
And his grandmother was in a nursing home in Winder, and that was the one person that he had the closest relationship with. So I would leave Madison, go to Columbus, carry him to Winder to visit with his grandmother, and then go back to Columbus in one day. And that was a long day, but I think he remembers that we cared about him, and that those connections with his family were important to me and him.
I don't have a lot of physical abuse cases, believe it or not. There are problems with poverty. So the neglect part of it is what I deal with a lot.
That was probably the biggest shock, is seeing her house. She had an animal that lived in the house with her that she did not clean up after. The child was still in diapers at the time, and there were just, dirty diapers all over the floor, bugs in the sink, the water was brown, it was dirty clothes galore. She just, there was no food in the fridge, nothing in the cabinets. She did clean her act up and clean the house, and I've never seen it that way again. That's my only dirty house. Dirty houses aren't typical on my caseload, but that was one that was the extreme that we were able to help.
I was on call, and it was about 11 o'clock, about 25 degrees outside. It just turned winter, and I had a kid who had disrupted his 4th placement in a month. He had made some threats of hurting some of the other kids, and he made some threats of hurting himself, and he was going to run away and do this. And he had made these threats before, and so I was like, okay, well, and he hadn't been taking his medication, so let's go get him. Let me go get him assessed to see what his needs are. So we got there, and he got in the car and walked across the street and started walking away. I'm like, come on back. And he was like, I ain't going. I told you I ain't going to no GD, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. And so, I ignored him. I said, he'll stop walking after a while. He's only 7. How far is he going to go? And so he started running down this major highway. And so here I am chasing him. It's 30 degrees outside, and it's a major road, and I'm trying to call 911 on my phone, and I'm tired, and I'm breathing on the phone. Please, can you come get this kid? He's running away, blah, blah, blah. And so he's trying to fight me, and I don't want to hurt him. You're in a situation where I'm bigger than him, he's 7. I don't want to necessarily grab him, so I just kept bumping him to keep him out of the road until the police came. He's cussing the officer out and cussing us out and kicking the window, and we got him back to the facility, and they got him in, and they handcuffed him, and he's cursing and kicking and screaming and telling us to suck his you-know-what and kiss his you-know-where, and all these things that these other placements have said that he's done. I hadn't seen it. I didn't believe it. I said, not him. He's not going to do that. But, he did everything they said he did. And so anyway, it turned out to be a long morning. The doctor came in, and he told the doctor to get out of his mother effing face, and he screamed and kicked and yelled and cursed, and they ended up admitting him into this particular facility. But that ruined my morning. I was going to sleep in that Sunday morning.
I had just gotten home and had started dinner, and it was about 7:15. My phone rang, and by 7:30 I was out the door. There were 8 children. The youngest child was an infant, and that child died. The actual cause of death was asphyxiation, but the child had also been sodomized. It's very traumatic for a child when they're placed in foster care, because you're removing them from everything that's familiar to them. And if you can keep them in the same county, at least that's some familiarity there, and same school. So, you know, that's real important. Also, when there's sibling groups, I think it's very important to try to keep those together, because that's all they have is each other. I did want to try to keep them together, particularly because this family was so isolated from community, and by the time everything was said and done and I had the children placed, it was 12:30 the next day. When I finally got home, I got a quick bite to eat and lay down and slept for a little while, and then had to get up and go back to the office to complete some paperwork and take care of some things, get some things scheduled. Then back home and up very early the next morning to drive the 60 miles to pick the children up, and then to transport them back to our county. It was just a whole realm of things that we had to take care of, and there was a lot of traveling. Stress levels were very high. You're tired. So that was a very difficult case. But I was very pleased that I was able to keep those children together.
You see the child from the date of removal until they're adopted, and a lot of teens, especially young teens, sometimes don't get to that point where they're adopted. But when you are approached by a young teen who has been adopted, and who comes up to you in a public place and tells you, Patty, I never knew how bad it was. Those are the moments when you come to realize that I've made a difference and it's worth it.
When you can see how their lives can be changed by the work you do, that's what makes it all worthwhile.
The shared passion makes this job so exciting. I wouldn't want to do anything else.
The DHR logo is a sign of helping hands, uplifting, and the motto is touching lives. And I must say, when I reflect back on my life in DFCS, I have touched lives, in most cases for the better, and that keeps me going.
And this job isn't for everybody, but this job is very rewarding in a sense. And you have to believe in what you do, and you have to have a passion for what you do. And when you do that and you combine all of those in one, you can be an excellent case manager. If you're not flexible, if you're not assertive, if you're not willing to work with families and just get out there and do this because you love it, then this job may not be for you. But if you want to make a difference in the family's life, then this job is for you, and you ought to give it a try.